Hello and welcome to Queen City Cyber Consulting. We are going to go over some fundamentals for cybersecurity. So whether you're studying for the CISSP, the Security Plus, the Certified Ethical Hacker course, or any other number of courses, you're going to have to know the answer to this question. What is a security event versus what is a security incident? Um, Very important. Very important. So why it matters? In the real world, not on the test. If you're working in a SOC or looking to get into a SOC, um, some kind of entry level position within cybersecurity, you need to understand what the distinction is. And you cannot treat every incident or every event as an incident because that's going to burn you out in the end. But if you miss a real incident, that gets far worse. So you need to have a precise definition of what is an event versus what is an incident. So you have to have a common definition set up, which would fall into the shared language area. That should be in your incident response plan, your SLAs, your SOC manuals, documents to determine how to make that distinction. And the response size matters. If it's an event, there is no response. However, if it becomes an incident, there is a response, and it could be the incident response team is activated. There could be formal reporting. There could be escalation involved. And you can use the definition as well to get rid of the noise because all operating systems create a lot of events. Everything is logged in one form or another. And most of your network monitoring tools uh, will review those events and send either alerts or information over to a SIM or something along those lines to allow you to be able to see what's going on in the environment. And you have to be able to get through the noise. And having a good definition of an event versus an incident gives you that ability. So what is an event? Well, an event is simple. Any observable occurrence in a system or network. That's anything. And like I just said, operating systems log nearly everything. So an event is neutral by nature. It's just something that happens. Day to day occurrence. You wake up in the morning, you go to the bathroom, you brush your teeth, you take a shower, whatever it is that you do for your normal routine, that's an event. There's nothing out of the ordinary there. What would make it an incident is, let's say you get in the shower, you slip and you fall. Now you have an incident. That's the difference between the two. Some everyday examples, a user logs in or out of any workstation or server or file server, whatever it is. That happens every day, and those events are logged. Firewall picks up a port scan. Port scans happen every day. Some are benign, some could be malicious. But because it happens every day, they're typically classified as an event. File opening, file copying, file modification. Again, in a business, these happen every single day. It's an event. It's nothing to get upset about. Let's put it that way. They just do happen. But what is an incident? Well, an incident is something that could harm or threaten to harm the systems or data under your control. So we're kind of fall back to that simplest and most basic of security principles, the CIA triad: confidentiality, integrity, or availability of systems or data. If it affects one of those three things, then it demands action. Now, it could be malicious or it could be a malfunction. You have to be able to make that determination as well. And it might take more investigation to figure out whether it is. say a misconfiguration on a system, or whether it's a malicious actor attempting to interact with that data. But for the basics, an incident is something that will threaten to harm or could harm the systems or data under your control. Of course, we use the obvious ones: confirm malware infection spreading across the network. You can have unauthorized access to accounts or sensitive data. Ransomware, of course, is an incident. Denial of service is another big one. And if you can confirm exfiltration of data, then that is definitely an incident. So let's look at them side by side. A security event is any observable occurrence in a system. That changes when it becomes something that could harm or threaten to harm that system or the data contained therein. The trigger: routine activity or a logged change. For a security incident: confirmed or suspected malicious action. The suspected is really where a lot of people will tend to get lost in the weeds. How do you define suspected malicious action? How do you respond to it? That's beyond the scope of this video. What we're looking at is the difference between a security event and an incident. But if you suspect it's malicious, then it becomes an incident. Its frequency. A security event is constant. You can go back over, say, a historic timeline and see that this happens all the time. Thousands plus events every day. It becomes more likely that it is an event, not an incident. But if it's a rarity, if it's something that doesn't happen all the time, it rises to the level of an incident. Take, for example, password sprays, things along those lines. Severity. If it's a security event, it's neutral. Most often it's benign or informational. If it's an incident, it will have a negative impact or could pose a clear threat to the environment that you are seeking to protect. Your response is different for an event versus an incident. If it's an event, then it gets logged and monitored. There's no action taken. However, if it rises to the level of an incident, then you probably will be activating the incident response plan and involving other members of your team to help investigate and then lead to remediation if necessary. They always start the same, whether it's a log file, whether it's a firewall log, whether it's a port scan, whatever it could be. They're going to come in the same way. Here's some examples. You've got a failed login, you've got a malware alert or a port scan. Any one of these could be just an event, or they could be an incident. And it's important to be able to distinguish between what is the event and what is the incident. And there are some examples. You can screenshot this and take it and run with it on your own. We're not going to go into in-depth detail into this, but the explanations are pretty straightforward. So what happens when an event becomes an incident? Well, once it's observed, whether it's through your SIM, whether it's through an EDR, whether you have a third party monitoring for this and you get the alert via email, it triggers the escalation. And then you have to answer some questions. Is it confirmed malicious intent, or could it be a policy violation? Is it present an actual or imminent impact to confidentiality, integrity, or availability, that CIA triad that we talked about? All of these are different things that you have to be able to answer once it gets escalated. So the event could be observed, some questions have to be asked, like these on the slide, and then you could declare an incident. So if any of these are true and you answered yes to them, then it becomes an incident and you move into your incident response plan. The incident response lifecycle is a really common informational cycle, whether it's via NIST, whether it's via the CISSP, or whatever it may be. They all have incident response lifecycle plans. So you have preparation, you have detect and analyze, you have contain, eradicate, recover, and review. We'll go into these in detail in another video or two, but you need to be aware that once an event becomes an incident, this is what's going to spin up and begin to deal with it. I'm not going to go into detail in these because, like I said, we're going to go over these in another slide. So, some key takeaways for you to take with you. Every incident is an event, but not every event is an incident. That's the key. Events happen all the time, every day. An incident is something that could cause or threaten to cause harm. That's where the cutoff is. You have to classify them correctly, and that way you can focus your response efforts and clear away all of that static on the network. And you have to have some clear escalation criteria there as well, because you don't want events becoming incidents without the proper investigation or knowledge. And you have to rehearse that incident response life cycle before you actually need it. The CISA just learned that this week. They had a pretty big breach, and one of their findings in their review of the incident was they didn't have an incident response plan in place for it. That's the regulating body that's telling everybody else to do it, and here they find out they didn't do it. Don't find yourself in that category. So that is the answer for what is the difference between an incident and an event. So hopefully you can take this and learn from it and go pass your test or perform more adequately in your SOC environment. Have a great day.